Hey, welcome back to Rust Order Garage. It is time to introduce another project. All right, so while the 55 Buick build does continue, I have another one that's going to get started. And while I don't usually ever do two projects at once, this one has to be out by Halloween. And it's middle of May now, so that seems like a far way off to go, but you know how it goes. Things always end up taking longer than possible, and there's always surprises. So the goal with this 51 Hudson is a low buck LS swap. And I mean low buck is in even lower than the Buick, because the Buick has probably $2,000 worth of extras related to the turbo. So that adds on top of the bill. So this one's not getting that. This is going to get a low dollar 5.3 automatic out of a 2003 Escalade. And we'll go over all that when the time comes. But this is going to be a low dollar build. Low dollar. I don't mean zip tie and baling wire, but I mean it's going to be a very reasonable build. The only things I'm going to do to it to have it out for Halloween is it's getting a Jaguar front suspension, it's getting the LS swap with the overdrive, and it's getting painted blue. And that is pretty much about it. I am not touching the interior yet. I don't think I'm going to have time to get into the rear axle yet. You know, it's going to be pretty much just what's needed to get this thing running and driving for Halloween, and then come back and do more stuff like interior work, and probably replace the rear axle and upgrade that, and probably rewire the whole car, because it needs it. But I'm gonna do what I need to do minimally to get this thing on the road by then. But the first thing I have to do is get this engine out. It's going to a new home by the end of the week, and I can see it's gonna have to come out like now. I just don't have time to mess around. So time to get this inside and get the engine. All right, here we go. First inspection of the 51 Hudson. I have never looked under this car, so I don't know what to expect. And I am new to Hudsons. I do know that they are unibody cars. There is no separate frame. I took a quick look under this car when I bought it, and it looked like the main structure was good, and it is. All the main rails and stuff are good, solid. Look like they're good and oiled from a leaky engine or whatever, so they didn't rust, so that's great. I will need to do some inner rocker repairs. Looks like somebody was here before me, left their booger welds, and did a couple patches here. That's going to need to get redone, which is fine. That's not a big deal at all. Same thing right here in the corner of the floor. It looks like has some spots. Again, not a big deal at all. That's easy. The main structure is what's important. And no, I am not coming back to make these repairs on the inner rockers right now. I don't think I'll have time to do it before Halloween unless things go better than planned. Rear axle also is probably going to stay for the moment. I don't know what kind of axle this is, but I don't care. It's going to end up being just measuring it from a wheel mounting surface to wheel mounting surface to get a width on what I'm going to replace it with. I think a narrowed Explorer 8.8 is the one to use, so that's what I'll look into finding one. But for now, I think that rear is going to stay in the car. And a lot of weird stuff on these Hudsons, that's for sure. Because they are so low, it has this two-piece drive shaft running through with a carrier bearing. It's probably not available at your local Napa, but at least it is in good shape. So for now, if I decide to just deal with shortening the front half of the drive shaft, I think I can get away with that and get the car running. And then when the rear axle gets replaced, change the drive shaft. Because the other thing to check out about that is this crazy rear cross member we have here that the drive shaft goes through. So that's kind of different. So that's something to deal with. Also, the emergency brake linkage here is one freaking, you know, carnival of stuff. It's pretty crazy the way they did things in the 50s. You know, you've got your two main cables through rear axle, which is pretty normal, but then you've got this crazy linkage here, pulling levers and dials and switches and whatever to get the e-brake to work. And the e-brake does work, but I don't think it's going to work like this when I'm done. So, other than that, again, 50s master cylinder below the floor. That's the brake light switch. It's not off the pedal, but it will be when I'm done here because I'm putting swing pedals on it as well. And this crazy front steering setup is a center point steering. This is hard to even show, but way up there is a pitman arm that goes to a drag link that runs over to another kind of like two-piece pitman arm that spins off of this main section here and then moves these tie rod ends. Pretty crazy. It's all coming out. You know, it's great for a Hudson. They worked great in NASCAR back in the day, but I need power steering if my wife is going to drive this car, or my daughter. And 100 turns lock to lock on manual steering is not going to make it. It looks like the front cross member is bolted into the car, which is pretty cool, because that means it'll be pretty painless to remove. And I can always just cut off the top mounts for the suspension. I don't even have to unbolt them. So that's it for the quick first inspection. I need to get this engine and transmission out. So I'm going to do the usual: disconnect the drive shaft, disconnect the transmission, get the exhaust cut off, disconnect the shift linkage, disconnect the speedometer cable. If I didn't say it already, disconnect the drive shaft. Motor mounts, I have to see how this thing is even bolted in, and you can't see, there's no light. I have to basically just wing it as I'm going here. We got some crazy clutch linkage too. This is unreal with all this stuff they got here. And it's all got to come out. So, let me get started. All right, I am a couple hours in. Pretty much removed everything in this area. All the e-brake stuff, I was going to try to save it. I just took it all out. All the e-brake stuff's out. Pedals, master cylinder, transmission's unbolted, master cylinder is gone, drive shaft's out, exhaust is out. A bunch of pieces on the floor there. And yeah, it's getting there. One thing I have noticed is that running an exhaust on this is going to be interesting, because the factory had a single exhaust, not very big, that ran through this area here with the drive shaft. Now, if I go one-piece drive shaft, which I'll probably be able to do because the transmission that I'm putting in, the 4L60E, is going to be longer than that one. So this whole brace section all in here can go away. This is all just a brace for the carrier bearing. Then there's just this cross member here, and I imagine I'll just have to cut the bottom out of it and just open it up for a drive shaft to go through. But for an exhaust system, unless I'm running a single exhaust, which I may have to do, there's really nowhere to put pipes on this thing. They made these cars, they're called step-down Hudsons. The floor pan is very low. The unibody helped them do that. These cars look super low at stock ride height. They look awesome, but it really makes it tight to try to run anything under here. So, that's going to be a challenge at the time. I mean, I don't normally like to run side pipes, you know, or pipes out the side, but before the wheels. But it might have to be an option. Well, I'll worry about it later. Radiator just still dripping and draining, and I think it's time to lower this down, and it's just about time to fly this engine and transmission out of here. All right, so I took a break for lunch, set the car down, Get a look up here on the top. Gonna have to take, obviously, radiator out, maybe the fan, radiator hoses, get stuff out of the way, disconnect the fuel pump. One thing I noticed, which is gonna be interesting to deal with, is the wiper motor. That thing is kind of like hanging right out in the middle of the engine compartment. And that may be a problem for the truck intake, because this is a low buck one. I don't plan on spending any big money on any crazy parts, so I'm hoping I don't have to buy an LS1 type intake to make this engine fit in here. This will be interesting. Why they put all the wiper motor mechanism out here, I don't know, but I guess I'll get to that point when I get there, right? So the hood does not go up very high on these cars. I'm gonna unbolt the hinges from the hood and see if I can stand this hood like kind of straight up and get some more room, and then continue on removing stuff. I have not been filming this because I don't know how many people really need to see me or want to see me taking a Hudson apart, but yeah, I don't think it's really that big a deal. So let me get the radiator out, and probably this piece here with the hood latch, hopefully not the grill and such. Yeah, and we'll go from there. All right, well, you all know what the definition of insanity is, right? Doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. You would think by now, after doing enough cars, that I wouldn't be so delusional over what it takes to build one. I think I finally now have the engine transmission ready to come out. Ran into some things here just to remind me that I'm an idiot if I think it takes 15 minutes to build a car. This car is what friends and I refer to as it's been touched. As in, not in a good way, people have had hands on this thing. So we have all black wires everywhere. So this car has been rewired, quote rewired, with black wires everywhere. Don't know which one is which, no idea. At this point, I'm not even quite sure which wire feeds power into this car or what the deal is here. Other reminder is that this is a 6-volt car. So that's not going to work as far as obviously with the LS going 12 volts. But I didn't plan on rewiring the whole car right now. I only planned on adding enough wires to run the engine transmission. Well, that may change based on what I'm seeing here. I may have to rewire this car. So again, that's just something else to add to the list. It's been an interesting disassembly. This has had what you might say is an amateur restoration, and a lot of the hardware around here was like even worse than dumped out of a coffee can like I use. Like dumped out of a coffee can, and they didn't even use the same bolts. They used bolts here, bolts there, whatever fit in the hole went in. So it took a while to get things apart. But I think finally to the point of pulling this beast out of here. At least the engine ran good. It's just quite the pain to get it out. On the floor. I think that is a good time to call it. The engine is out. That is going to be going off to a new owner in a few days. So I got to get that out of here and up to the house. And here's a sneak peek at what I'm looking at in here. Oh, wow. So, yeah, just about everything you're looking at here is going away. Except for that. I'm not sure what to do with that yet. That's the cross member. It's welded into the car. I don't know if I could cut that out and make like a removable center section for it that would bolt in place. I've got to take measurements because I don't know where that's going to be in relation to the transmission. You certainly wouldn't want that under, you know, the pan or in the way. It looks like it's going to be, I don't know, honestly, whereabouts that's going to land. I'm going to take some measurements. Either way, it doesn't look like it's in a good place. Yeah, so that's, right now, that's the major issue to deal with. This huge center cross member is all going away. It's all coming out. Steering is coming out. Steering box, steering column, all coming out. Battery tray coming out. Motor mounts coming out. All that stuff's coming out. And I'm going to, obviously, all the suspension's coming out too. And, yeah. Going to redo this and put the Jaguar front suspension in it. So it'll get me 4-piston disc brakes, rack and pinion power steering, and all forged control arms and such. So that should be a nice upgrade for this. So that'll all be in the next upcoming videos. I'm going to start thrashing on this thing and getting it done as fast as reasonably possible. So that is it for now. And we will see you on the next one.